Every morning, millions wake up and dive into the grind, working long hours, chasing promotions, trading their time for money. But here's the truth. You can always make more money, but you can never make more Tim. Mark had it all: wealth, power, success. But something was missing. He was always too busy. Too busy to spend time with family, too busy to take a break, too busy to live. One night, Mark sat in his office, buried in work. His phone buzzed. A message from his son. "Dad, are you coming to my game?" He hesitated, then got back to work. Then a phone call changed everything. His best friend, Tom, had a heart attack, rushed to the hospital. That moment hit like a thunderbolt. Tom was the same age as Mark, successful but always in a hurry. And now he was out of time. Sitting in the hospital waiting room, Mark stared at the clock on the wall. If I died today, would I be proud of how I spent my time? He wondered. He had spent years chasing money, but for what? A bigger house he barely lived in? A car he never had time to drive? At Tom's funeral, Mark listened to people sharing stories, not about Tom's wealth, but about his kindness, his adventures, the memories he created. No one talked about Tom's net worth. They talked about the time he gave, his laughter, his generosity, the moments he shared. That day, Mark made a decision. He started valuing time over money. He worked less, lived more, and made memories that no amount of money could buy. He called his son. He made time for family. He finally started living. Years later, Mark sat at a family gathering, watching his kids laugh, holding his grandchild for the first time. Time is the one currency you can't earn back. You either use it wisely or waste it forever. The clock keeps ticking. The question is, how will you spend yours? Mark had always believed that money was the ultimate key to happiness. He had worked tirelessly for over 2 decades, climbing the corporate ladder, making sacrifices, and pushing himself beyond his limits. Success was his only focus. While others spent their weekends with family, Mark spent his in the office, finalizing deals, answering emails, and strategizing for an even brighter financial future. He barely noticed how life outside his office window continued without him. One evening, as he wrapped up a long workday, he received a message from his 12-year-old son, Jake. "Dad, will you be at my game tomorrow?" Mark sighed, staring at his packed schedule. He wanted to be there, but there was always another meeting, another deal, another reason to postpone moments that truly mattered. "I'll try," he replied, knowing deep down that he wouldn't make it. The following night, as Mark reviewed financial reports, his phone rang. It was an unusual time for calls, and his heart skipped a beat. When he answered, he heard the shaky voice of his friend Tom's wife. "Tom had a heart attack. He didn't make it." Mark felt the air leave his lungs. Tom was his closest friend, the same age, just as driven, just as busy. They had often joked about slowing down, taking a break, enjoying life someday. But now, for Tom, someday would never come. Guilt hit Mark like a tidal wave. He had been meaning to catch up with Tom for months. They used to talk about their college days, their dreams, their families. But work had always come first. Now, Tom was gone, and Mark had lost his chance to say goodbye. The funeral was filled with people who had known Tom in different ways. Colleagues, childhood friends, neighbors, all sharing stories about the man he was. As Mark listened, he noticed something striking. No one talked about Tom's wealth. No one mentioned his job title, his bank balance, or the deals he had closed. Instead, they spoke about the time he spent with his kids, the road trips he took, the kindness he showed to strangers, Mark sat in silence, reflecting on his own life. If he died tomorrow, what would people say about him? Would they talk about the nights he spent in the office, the deals he signed, or would they remember a man who was too busy for his family, his friends, and even himself? That night, Mark couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, haunted by a single thought. I traded time for money, but in the end, time was the real treasure. The next morning, he did something unthinkable. He took a day off. For the first time in years, he shut his laptop, ignored his emails, and went downstairs to have breakfast with his wife and son. Jake was shocked. "Are you sick, Dad?" he asked jokingly. Mark chuckled, realizing how rare it was for him to simply be present. As he watched Jake eat, he felt a deep sadness for all the moments he had missed. Birthdays, school plays, first bike rides. But he wasn't going to miss any more. Mark started making small changes. He left work on time, had dinner with his family, and spent weekends actually living instead of just working. He picked up old hobbies, reconnected with friends, and even booked a long overdue family vacation. At first, his colleagues were confused. "Are you okay?" they asked, assuming something was wrong. But Mark was more than okay. He was finally living. The joy of spending time with his loved ones outweighed any temporary financial gain. He saw the truth clearly now. Money could buy comfort, but it could never buy back lost time. One evening, as he and Jake played basketball in the driveway, Jake looked up and said, "Dad, I like the new you." It was the simplest statement, but it hit Mark harder than any business deal ever had. Years passed, and Mark continued prioritizing time over money. He still worked, but he no longer let it consume him. He watched Jake grow up, attended every game, and made memories that no amount of wealth could replace. One day, he sat on his porch, watching his son teach his grandson how to throw a ball. A wave of gratitude washed over him. He had almost missed this, almost traded these moments for a few extra zeros in his bank account. Then, he thought of Tom and whispered, "I wish you were here to see this." Time is the only currency that never replenishes. You can spend it wisely, or you can waste it chasing things that won't matter in the end. The question isn't how much money you have, but how well you've spent your time. And so, Mark leaves you with the thought: if today was your last day, would you be proud of how you spent it?